to the assembly report, and we don't have, Mr. Rivera says that he's not going to be able to make it to our meetings. Lance attends a lot of the work sessions and assembly meetings. Also, I go to the Budget and Finance Committee meetings. So one thing I wanted to add to this is that I talked to Forrest Dunbar, and Forrest says that he would like to be able to, he would be interested in attending our meetings and representing the assembly. He's co-chairing Budget and Finance, and he couldn't be at the September one because a group of them is in Japan right now, I guess. A group, I don't know, is that a sister city trip or something like that? So he's there, but he said that he would probably be able to do October, and then from then on he could attend if that was the will of our group. So I think there'd be some good value in that, but if you guys do as well. Lance, do you have any comments on the Assembly's perspective on things?
No, only that Assembly Chair Rivera was, at the last time I spoke with him, he was still making committee assignments from the board, and that would include if the chair or if Forrest or some other member of the Assembly would be serving as the Assembly representative here. So I have not heard that he's made that assignment or that Forrest was interested, but obviously Forrest on the Budget Advisory Commission. And as far as things going on at the Assembly that would be interested of the Commission, I mean, right now, the only thing that's really in front of them, that's going to be in front of them right now, is they have to address, and I don't know all of the gory details, but in order to address the immediate needs of sheltering and addressing some homelessness issues, the health department had used a significant portion of their budget, their 2019 budget, to address the immediate need to make sure that Brother Francis and Beans or one or the other maintained services and continued. What that did is they basically spent their shelter money that they would have spent in December. They spent it last month. So we're going to be putting together an appropriation in front of the Assembly to do a supplemental to give money out of our fund balance back to the health department so that they can do the winter sheltering, so that it'll be in full service. So that will be coming to the Assembly probably on the 10th or the 24th. And other than that, I also know that at their last meeting they approved the stormwater utility, the creation of the utility, but they didn't support the funding to go forward with the analysis of that. That matters before them on the 10th. They're going to reconsider how they actually fund the stormwater utility, and I'm not sure how that's going to go one way or the other, but there were some questions from a couple of Assembly members similar to some of the questions that you guys had when Jason and Mark were here last month.
Yeah, Joe.
How much was that supplemental to HHS?
It will be probably, I think it's probably going to be around $200,000. They spent $185,000 of the money that they had programmed for winter supporting of cold weather sheltering. They've created the administration had proposed, and I think the Assembly has seen, instead of it being cold weather sheltering, it's emergency sheltering, so it could be in any event. And then who can actually trigger that, but the funding to back it up will be part of that conversation next week.
So the $200,000 comes from reserves?
Yes, it does. Our emergency reserves.
Yeah, and I do know that with the liaison functions with the Assembly that in the past the Assembly chair has also been chair of Budget and Finance, but that isn't the case anymore.
I don't believe so. I don't know.
And that was part of why the Assembly chair used to come to our meetings was because of that dual role. But since that's separated now, it makes sense. I think it makes as much sense for the Budget and Finance chair to come as the Assembly chair.
Okay.
Any other comments on the Assembly?
Nope.
Then got Mr. Ratliff here then to talk about school district.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In front of you probably have a set of financial statements that we do. This is a document we provide our school board starting in November, December, how we project out how much we're going to spend, or how much we think we're going to spend for the rest of the year, how much we're going to end up in fund balance. And they largely use this as planning purposes, how much money we're going to have left over that we can put towards the next year or if there's emergencies.
She's
So I'm just
going to
going to
send
walk
it to
through.
Carla and Mindy.
I have it in PDF probably, on email if you want. Okay. Probably. Just but I'd like to walk through some of the highlights and some of the things that may not be intuitive whenever you read these statements. The first page is our revenue projections. And keep in mind, this year's kind of an anomaly with the earthquake and all the money we put into that. So we have a couple lines just show what it would have been without that. The first one under other local revenues, the bottom line under local sources, there's $32 million budgeted. That is largely the use of fund balance that we are normally going to use, which is about $1 million plus. Right after the earthquake, the school board authorized another $30 million because we really had no idea the extent of the damage or how much we would spend. But we authorized $30 million of upper limit spending authority, assuming we were going to get this money back from FEMA or state sources for the most part. So that's why you see a big variance there, is we didn't spend that much. And then the revenue sources that we have booked for the earthquake are under state and federal. So we just haven't kind of moved those budgets to align yet. But we did have about $7 million in federal reimbursement that we're expecting, and then another $135,000 or so under for state. So those are the biggest things for the revenue sources. The things we did well on, particularly where interest earnings was about 370% higher than what we budgeted. Largely, the stock market did really well. The interest rates from the Fed ticked up this year above what we projected. So we just made, and within the municipal investment pool, made a lot better interest earnings than what we had expected on there. And we use a mark-to-market approach, so we do have the possibility that those go down, and those earnings can get washed out in future years. The other big one, is under federal sources, the federal impact aid. This is money that we get for students on base that comes from the federal government. It's in lieu of property taxes. So that went up by quite a bit, and that's largely because they've closed out prior year's applications that they dispersed a couple years after we've applied for it. So we closed out our year, we did our application, we received money for it, and they go back and see how much money's left in the pool of what Congress allocated for the program, and then disperse the remaining amount to the districts that applied based on what's left in the pot and what else the enrollment is at each school. So we did well there. But that does, when we receive more federal impact aid money, we receive less state money. The state takes about half of our federal impact aid money off of their foundation allocation as part of their foundation formula. So we do have a decrement or a negative variance in our foundation funding for state sources. But all things being equal, without the earthquake at the bottom, we are about $6 million to the good, or about 1% variance from what we had budgeted originally. Any questions on revenue?
Let's see, anybody have any? No, I don't think so.
So, Mr. Chairman, Carla and Lindy, Lila should have just sent the documents that Andy was just referring to you, so you had them, or you should have received them. Or you will be receiving them, depending on your internet provider.
For the expenditures under salaries, the one thing that may not be intuitive would be, of course, the other account, which is predominantly the cost of leave accrual for our employees, noon duties, safety security personnel, and then if there's bonuses or added duty classified or additional duties that classified employees work, that's all kind of rolled into there. But for the most part, it is the value of the leave that we provide employees. And then the attrition accounts is how much we expect to, if we have unfilled positions throughout the year or people are hired in less than what we budgeted, that's where that attrition savings, but we have like one general offset where we try to capture that back. It's really us estimating how many folks aren't going to be hired that we've budgeted to be hired. And predominantly that's within special education, as those positions are continuing to be hard to fill. With both the teachers' assistants, there's a lot of turnover in those. So once one leaves, you got to wait a couple weeks for it to actually get out there, get posted, get hired. So we have all this kind of domino effect whenever someone leaves, and then just the other teachers within special education we have a hard time filling in general.
Hey, Andy,
Yes, ma'am.
Carla, really quick. While I did not get the document.
Who's speaking?
That's
Is
Carla.
that Carla?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, let me
I
try.
thought they might come through a little bit later, but they still have not come through.
Okay, let me try again.
Andy, those special ed positions, there's no decrease in need, it's just the difficulty in hiring.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that's kind of a nationwide shortage that we've had in everywhere, special education teachers, particularly the hard to fill ones with like occupational therapy, physical therapist, the blind visually impaired program. Some of those continue to be, speech language continue to be really hard to fill and find qualified people to do it. For our benefits, the biggest variance is under medical, and that's we budget everyone to take if you're working full-time, you get medical insurance. Under the collective bargaining agreements, it used to be that if you waived medical insurance, we would still pay into a trust fund for those employees. We stopped doing that, so now when folks don't take insurance, we have this big budget to actual variance. But we try to capture that within the benefit attrition account. So that's mostly what that benefit attrition is how much of those medical waivers we can capture back. And it just allows us to increase other areas of the budget by having this negative offset. In the services, the two kind of anomalies there, unallocated. That's generally just money that maybe they have a plan for, but it's not been allocated to any specific purpose. That's where the charter schools pool up their money that they're required to carry over. This year, it's a little under 11 million of the amount that's carrying over for unallocated as charter schools. Of that 11.1 million, 10 point of the projection, because that's the projection, I should say, are actuals and encumbrances, projects that are going to carry forward. So of the 11.1 million, about 10.7 or 10.8 of that is charter school money that they're carrying forward. And then there's the 14 million that's remaining in the variance amount that's almost all of it's from the earthquake account that we didn't spend. We ended up spending about a little under 9 million on earthquake related things out of the 30 that we put. So we do have a big chunk of unallocated money towards that earthquake that we're just not going to spend. It's just a budget variance at this point. And then other contracted services at the bottom of services is the other big one. That's mostly our maintenance contracts, operations contracts. If we have administrative or instructional contracts, such as we can't hire speech therapists, we have to go contract out with a local agency to get those services filled. That's where that money goes. But those are the biggest part of them. In our software our licensing agreements are in there also. But mostly maintenance and software, special education contracts kind of filled that 35 million that we spent. And then we were over on our liability and insurance claims as we settled a lot of old cases out and just to get them off our books. And then we had some other cases this year that we ended up paying out fairly large claims on. So we don't anticipate that going forward. But overall, after you take out the expenditure budgets and expenses, we're about $2.4 million above what we were under what we budgeted, for about 0.4%. So we got pretty much closer on that one. Any questions on the expenditures? If you have questions later, you can always come back and ask me if I have a chance to look at this. I know we're going through it pretty quick.
Just generally speaking, you're talking about some of the services that had to be contracted out. Like, is that a line item over the years that's gone up as the kind of special need or the special education need has increased?
Not necessarily because the need has increased. It's more because we can't find the people to fill those positions. Right. We have had an increased needs. We have an increased number of students receiving services, but if we could fill the positions and have them done internally, we would. But it has gone up just because it's getting harder and harder to fill all those positions.
Right. Thank you. Yeah.
So This is Tasha, for those of you on the phone. I've been following the school district budget for a few years now, and I always am hearing, like, why does the budget keep going up when the student count is going down? And the reasons I hear are the cost of health care and then the increased number of students with special needs. Can those be broken out as separate line items for us to see that, like, as it changes from year to year? Because I think that would give me a much better understanding of, like, how much that actually is impacting the budget.
Sure. I mean, we have this in a different, probably not in this format, but we do have it within our budget document. You can see the historical costs by state function, which will break out special education from the total. So you can see that going up there. And it has historical ADMs in there also, so you can see the totals.
Can we get that one?
Sure.
Okay.
We can take some, there'll probably have to be some excerpts out of our budget document because it's 500 pages. You probably
Yeah, and I can meet with you separately like we did before. I just want to make sure that it's on both of our radar. Like, that's something I'm interested in seeing.
Yeah, but costs continue to go up, and even as student enrollment declines, but I've got 4 people, me and 3 other people in the budget office, whether it's 48,000 kids or 46,000, 44,000, I don't really I still have about the same number of facilities, about the same number of dollars to work with. There's not a whole lot I can trim off of that, I guess. And a lot of departments are the same way. Even if you have a few thousand less kids, the work doesn't really change for the most part. You'd have fewer teachers aides, but then that kind of shifts over to the special education needs, so the higher needs too. And the last page is how we calculate out the state's percentage. You'll hear the school board and other folks talk about the 10% carryover rule that the state has. This is really the calculation of that 10% carryover rule, which is to say it's the total amount of undesignated fund balance divided into your total general fund expenditures. So that becomes the basis for the 10%. An undesignated fund balance includes our unassigned fund balance, which is not really designated for any specific purpose, which is projected to be a little under $31 million. Our bond rating is 10% of our tax request, thereabouts, and that's to preserve our AAA bond rating. But the state doesn't allow that to capture it outside of our 10% calculation, because I think we're the only district that actually does it. And then anything that we're going to use for to offset future year expenditures. So in the undesignated category, we have about $60 million, and dividing it into about $612 million of total expenditures, we get to about 9.86% of our fund balance as a percentage of expenditures. So that's what they like. We have to stay under the 10% cap, otherwise we give money back to the state. And then there's a board minimum of 8% in board policy. So that gives us about $12 million between the lower end and the upper end for the board to play with without having a supermajority vote.
Without having a supermajority vote?
Right. They can vote to override policy and go below their 8%, but it's going to take 5 of them. But that's pretty much it. This is what we give to the board. We keep it updated, generally monthly, starting in November, December, so they can kind of have an idea of where we think we're going to end to help with their decision making.
Any questions? So going forward, there has been a lot of talk about the governor probably wanting to cut K through 12, and I know that's
We've heard those
actual
rumors.
facts and not what the down the road speculation is on things. But what is the school district doing to brace for something like that?
So there's 2 things going on. One is the lawsuit that's currently happening with the $30 million of forward funding the legislature put on, and that's would affect our current year budget, which is for the district it's about $10.5 million. 8.5 or so state money, then a $2 million local match that we couldn't actually receive. that we've budgeted for and requested from the city. So if that money goes away, by and large, all our folks are under contract, and it'll be, if it's halfway through the year, we wouldn't anticipate laying people off, as frankly, we couldn't lay off enough people to make that up, especially within our classified side. Because all our certified people are, by state statute, you cannot, once you've passed like the May 15th, our last day of school deadline for non-tenured folks, you have them on contract for the rest of the year. So really, I think the board would have to vote to eat that out of sub-fund balance. We do whatever measures we can to make that up, but ultimately, I think you'd have to pull some of it out of your savings account. Going forward, we'll start developing our budget in December. We'll produce our pro forma budget, which really says here's how much revenue we're expecting versus what our expenditures are going to be. At that point, the board will give us guidance on how they want us to prepare the budget, whether it's based on flat funding or whether it's based on what the governor puts out in his December budget, which could include a hefty cut. So really, we're kind of up in the air on how we're actually going to do that, the direction we're going to receive to develop the budget. Generally, we do it based on what's on statute, not what the governor's proposed.
Anybody else? All right, moving on. Then I think it's your show, Lance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the first item is the 2020 budget update for some new members of the Budget Advisory Commission. One of the first steps that we do at the administration in preparation of the budget is we are by code required to give the Assembly a document called the 120-day memo. I asked Lila to send you the memo itself and then the first couple pages of it. There should have also been a link, because the link includes all of the business plans for the utilities. I didn't make copies of that because it's like, 30-something pages, and there's information about each one of the utilities. That information is provided by code, so we have all of it in there. So what I'm going to do is just going to give you a highlight of what we gave them, and if you have any questions, I'll address those. But this is really the start of the budget process. It's telling the Assembly and the community kind of what direction that we're going, what we see right now preliminarily as we're building the budget. So on the revenue side, the total amount of revenues that we got in 19, they look to be pretty much the same in 2020. All think that's net. Some things are up, some things are down. We do believe that our investments, while they're up right now, they may be down next year. Tobacco taxes, it's swinging a little bit, but the net is roughly around the same amount of money. We're still waiting for some information to get final calculations, but on the revenue side, it looks pretty close to what we had last year. When we did the tax cap calculation, and I didn't include that in your packet because I missed it in what I was asking, or maybe it is in your packet. But you have the tax cap calculation. You do have the tax cap calculation. Yeah. So the bottom line in here is preliminarily the amount of property taxes last year that we were looking to collect that were under the cap was $287.7 million. In the proposed budget, through the adjustments that we make in the tax cap calculation, the preliminary tax amount would be $290 million. That number actually will be basically the number we use to put the proposed budget together. That number will change when we do 1Q and set the mill rate. But right now, based on the information that we have, that's where that information goes. As the year end closes, we get definitive real numbers on 19 for all of the non-property tax revenues inside the cap. That then adjusts the amount of property taxes that we get. And then we get additional forecasts, or revised forecasts, in January that actually helps us set the 2020 budget when we set the mill rate. So that 290 is likely to change, but basically that's where that is at. The next thing that we include in this 120 memo is just is a look at what the administration is initially thinking about bonds for 2020, and this is by department. The departments are not an accurate reflection of what the bonds will be. The one that would probably be closest would be roads. Parks is pretty one-to-one, but facilities maybe not. So, but if you looked at the total amount of bonds that we put out last week, and the mayor is still looking at the total number here to see if there's an opportunity to bring it down. But suffice it to say that a roughly $60 million in bond projects are being considered, or will probably be considered in the proposed budget that we give the Assembly on October 2nd. In addition to that $60 million, the Girdwood community is looking to rebuild their Little Bears and Community Center down there. That would be about a $2 million, but it's separated because that in itself will be a separate bond measure, because they will vote to assess themselves for that debt. But Anchorage voters will also see it, because we have to basically say, yes, we will incur the debt, even though we are not paying the debt.
It's on everybody's full faith and credit.
Yes, it's on our full faith and credit, but they are due for the debt. That's basically what happens when Parks and Rec, the language in the Parks and Rec bond, it's in the Park Service area, but Eagle River's got to vote for it because it's part of the full faith and credit. So anyway, on the capital program, I gave a preliminary list of projects to the Planning and Zoning Commission at their August meeting. Just kind of gave them a look at what those projects would look like. For the most part, the fire department, it's a couple apparatus, and if you guys want the details, I can tell you that, but there's some equipment there. The fire department is looking at the ability to potentially rebuild their maintenance shop, which was built in 1982. Back then we had 100 rigs, and now we have like 275. The library, it's a combination of some elevator, some intercom work, and some Mountain View work. Pretty much those are the projects that did not pass in the facilities bond last year. That's what that's about. Maintenance and operations, that is a significant amount to the senior centers. About a third of that's to senior centers. And then there is, I can't remember the other big project that's in that. Parks and Rec, a lot of the same things that you saw last year. Project management, engineering. There are a couple big projects in East Anchorage. Probably one of the bigger ones that we're considering is Academy Drive in Vanguard. And I'll get you this Academy Drive in Vanguard is if you are on Diamond going eastbound, you go under the Seward Highway, and then you take on to Abbott, and you go north. And when it starts to go through the S turns, there's a Holiday Station right there. It's kind of across from what used to be, I don't know, it's Seward's Folly right there. There's an intersection right there. That intersection, if you go into that neighborhood, Snakes kind of goes north a little bit. If you have kids that play soccer, it kind of goes by the Korean church and up. And then it connects to Vanguard and that Academy. And that goes straight to the frontage road. The DOT is rebuilding the Seward Highway to put an interchange at 92nd. It would go to this old Seward Highway. So this project is tied with the timing of that project. But it's like $8 million worth of right-of-way and $16 million worth of construction, so we're looking at the timing of that one. It's a pretty substantial project. So, and transit, that $2 million is matching $12 million of federal money. And then the traffic department, that's signal stuff, a little bit of traffic calming, but I can get you guys the preliminary list of projects. If you're interested, they will definitely be in full detail, all in the book when we provide them. But the amount of the bond is a little bit, obviously more than we had last year. The amount that we're retiring is roughly $36 million. The value of $36 million in today's dollars is about $55 million to $56 million. So I think that's why the mayor is interested to maybe see if that number is going to go down a little bit. But that's kind of where we were then. And that's kind of where we're going. So wants to keep pace with inflation as much as possible. So, and then you can see the rest of the columns: state, federal, and other. The other sources, that's basically, for example, for IT, we can't bond for computers. So what we do is we put the money in their operating budget, and then we transfer it to capital, because buying computers, buying servers, it's a capital expense, but it's not bondable capital expense. So we program money in our operating budget, change it to capital, and that's how Susie and IT buys their capital needs. So that's what that's about.
What's the 28 million for the state portion of maintenance and operations? Is that transportation related?
Under maintenance and operation, it's not. It's mostly, in summary, it's mostly a lot of the, for those of you who've been here this long, 80s projects. So it's doing a lot of work at the PAC. It's doing a lot of work at Ben Boke. It's a lot of work at basically those types of facilities. They're most of our, I think there's, I can't remember Jonathan or Nolan, what they all were, but they're listed out. They're mostly Project 80s projects.
Can you speak a little bit, Lance,
Uh-huh.
About the public transportation and, grabbing that 12.6 million in federal? It just seems like, over the last 2 years, we've really stepped up. I read that wrong, but just speak a little bit about the public transportation.
Sure. So the public transportation, they receive programmatic funds. It's not competitive. It's dollars in the door we know we're going to get, but in order for us to actually spend them, we have to provide a match. That programmatic amount of money we get is based on a variety of things: ridership, size of the community, it varies on a variety of ways. But it's based on programmatic, based on a formula. It's based on how much money goes into the federal transportation fund, and we get a portion of it for transit. And the railroad gets a portion of it, and our totality of basically 5307, which is ground transportation. We also get some federal money that's called congestion mitigation and air quality. We have to match that. It's a federal highway program, not a federal transit program. And then we get some other dollars from the Federal Transit Administration that actually come to us because we're an urban area. The Mat-Su wouldn't get that now, so that's where that money's coming from.
And our overall amount, I think I remember last year we were 55 million,
Yep.
54 million.
Yeah, I think with the assembly ads, we were at 57 or 58.
Yeah, okay.
I can get the number, but
And we had that whole conversation, and it came up in the assembly meeting also about the inflation adjusted amount being retired, being about equivalent to what we were issuing, but
Right.
that still kind of needed to be explained.
the other thing that we have, and I received it from Public Finance, is the debt per capita. And what we did is we asked the Public Finance to create the debt per capita, including the school district, so it's total debt, so that we know what was the total debt per capita back in 2000, and then what would the debt per capita be based on what we are potentially issuing. So
Mr. Chairman?
we're working on those numbers.
Yeah,
And hopefully we're doing that in real terms, not just nominal terms. So we're doing the double, right? I mean, one of the most powerful things that you can do is real dollars per capita.
So that's what I have right now is not real dollars. What I have is those dollars, $100 divided by 50,000 people,
Once
or
you
is
have a per
100,000 divided by
capita
70.
making it real takes 20 minutes.
Yeah, I got them the other day because the mayor was asking for them on Tuesday. What's today? Thursday, Tuesday. So that will be part of the mayor's information that he'll be sharing. But exactly right, it will be per capita in real dollars. So, again, the information is available online. The assembly received this and went to the directors, and it typically doesn't get a lot of attention until we get the budget put together, which is what we're doing right now. So if you guys have some particular questions, and Carla and Lindy, I hope that you did get those earlier.
Vicki,
Okay.
anything get the resolution that you said?
No, I was just referring to the 120-day memo.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Sorry. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yep, and then the resolution, that would be the next item here. So that's all I have on the 120-day memo.
Yeah.
So the project management and engineering, that huge project over there, none of that's eligible for federal highway dollars, or not at this stage, or is it not a highway, so you can't get that funds? How does that work?
They are eligible. I believe that there is one project in there which they would be providing matching funds.
Okay.
But I don't think the matching funds would be in 2020 just because of the calendar years of when they would do that. They're looking for the next, I think it's the next federal fiscal year, so the bond amount would provide match to federal.
Okay.
Yeah, but they are eligible. It's just that we don't build a lot of roads around here, locally owned streets with federal dollars.
Mr. Chairman, and are you aware, is there any money in this current package of plans to, rehab, I think it would be Mountain View Drive and Mountain View? I have to say, though I live in South Anchorage, drove through Mountain View last night, and for a main street going through a town center, that road's getting pretty crappy and pretty terrible.
If memory serves, there is a project that would go from, I think it's from Bragaw
Right.
to at least McCary and maybe to Boniface.
And that is the section upon which I drove last night that
Right.
was
It-
really terrible.
Yeah, it's not west of Bragaw. There is a request to do repave commercial, which would basically be from Airport Heights to 3rd.
Right. Well, if you go from, I think it's Bragaw, but it could be, it was that section that's in between where Thread is, which is past commercial, to Cleven, which is where Foraker is, right? And so it's that Bragaw to Cleven section is it feels like it's March and it's breakup and it's.
I believe that section is, I think that is the section that the department is recommending they
Okay.
do work on. Yeah, I think that's the section. That's all I have.
That's the full
Yep.
summary then.
Yep. So the next item on your agenda is the spending limit and the tax cap ordinance. The administration has the draft that we had sent you last week. I think they did a little bit of tweaks to it, but and I think I can actually. As soon as the assembly agenda gets published, I can send it to you with what's going to them because I don't know yet that it's actually going to be on the assembly agenda. When they say yes, these things are on, and I got the preliminary. As soon as that happens, it's available and you can see it, and I will send it. But it's basically what we showed you in the draft last week. And so what I've done is I did my best to try to capture in simple terms what I thought you guys were trying to illustrate, and I hope I got it pretty close to right. The only comment I got is I got a couple comments from Nolan, and I got a comment from Lindsay. She had two, but they're not in this draft, and I can explain those to you if you'd like. But I think, and I know Jed had a couple of questions that I will follow up on just to confirm that I have the right code citation. I took the citations from the ordinance that was drafted, but I'll verify that for sure to make sure that that's the case. But if it goes on the 10th, the Assembly will be looking at it next Tuesday, and it's going to get introduced. It will be scheduled for public hearing on the 24th of September, so that will be the schedule they're on. Hopefully you had a chance to take a look at it. Again, I apologize for not sending it to you a lot sooner, but I don't think there's any surprises in here. And then the last thing I'll say is the comment that Lindsay had was to change the order of the 4th and the 5th whereases to basically, the last whereas would be the Budget Commission supports the intent and concept, and that would be the last one because that is the ordinance that's there. So just for purpose, and I thought that was a very good comment. I didn't think about that when it is. And then the other comment that so that was one. I think that's a good one. And then the next one was that she had a comment that we should either incorporate or somewhere add some language that says something like, in her words, she said one of the most compelling arguments in support of this alignment is the unintended consequences of the current ordinances that have on constraining the city's ability to accept funding for projects that would otherwise benefit the city. I mean, I don't know if you would agree with that, but that is a true statement. And so I would, if we did something like that, I did craft something that basically says, whereas a compelling reason to support the alignment of the spending limit with the tax cap is the unintended consequence of the current spending ordinance has on constraining, and in her words. So I've edited it to include hers and did the reorder that way. So if you guys want to edit on that one, then go from there. But other than that, I don't have much else to offer on it.
And we were hoping to, if possible, act on this
Yep.
today, if we can. But so we have the ability to actually, like, we can verbally kind of amend.
Yes,
Okay.
totally. Yep.
Yeah.
You just needed something to work with,
Right.
and this is it.
I'd say that I guess given Lindsay's comment, the fifth whereas down, I added in that it does not appear to provide a meaningful constraint on municipal spending. Maybe we would say on municipal taxation instead.
However you-
Because otherwise it would sound a little contradictory. So I think that might be one. That'd be one change probably, along with the reordering. What comments do you guys have that you've had a chance to read?
This is Carla, and I have a few questions too, whenever.
Go ahead, Carla.
First of all, I do have a question about what you just said, Lance, regarding the inability to accept funding. That's not actually the case, right? It's the ability to use the funding that can be accepted, correct?
Yes, I believe that's correct. We could accept the money, but we couldn't do anything. Actually, I'll verify that. I'm pretty sure, I'll verify that, Carla, but I'm pretty sure that if we could accept it, we couldn't spend it. And I'm not even sure that we could accept it, but I will verify that.
Okay, and then also along that line, what the assembly is looking to do is to align them not to eliminate the spending limit, but to align it with the tax cap.
That is
I
correct.
want to be clear that, so there still will be a spending limit in there.
Correct. Yes,
Correct.
yes. And the ordinance basically says if for some reason the tax cap goes away, the spending limit still stands unless the assembly gets rid of the spending limit too.
Okay, and then I have one more question, but I'll let it go open to other people before I get the third one. If other people have questions. If not, I'll say it.
Okay, you might as well go ahead, Carla.
Okay, so the last thing I'm wondering about on this, and I know I'm going backwards because we already have this resolution out, but so we've received extra revenue regarding marijuana and fuel tax. So if we align these two additional sources of revenue now can be spent without relief to the taxpayers, correct? Whereas if it were a spending limit, then it would go. Maybe there would be relief to the taxpayers via the tax cap because now you've got the extra revenue.
So marijuana and fuel are both under the tax cap.
They are.
So no,
Wait, who answered that?
it's Nolan.
Okay. So I had asked okay. I think I just got two conflicting answers on this situation. So, okay.
So Carla, if we make more money in marijuana and we make more money in gas tax and everything other non-property tax things stay the same, let's say alcohol stays the same, tobacco stays the same, MUSA stays the same. If marijuana and gas receipts go up, property taxes go down.
Okay, so I had asked that last meeting, and I was told no. Remember, and you said, I'll have to explain to you why. Because I said, was the relief to the taxpayers via these two additional revenues? And I was told no, and then you said you would explain to me why there was no relief towards taxpayers.
Yeah, I think
Or
I,
tax-
Go ahead.
Mike, Carla, this is Jonathan. I think I remember this exchange. I remember what happened here. And so I think the part that's missing there was, in the answer that Lance just gave, he said, all other things staying the same,
Yes.
right? So if everything else stays the same, then yes, there's relief to the taxpayers. In the prior discussions that we had, something else changed. And the net effect was that you didn't end up with a lower property tax cap amount, because the effect of what marijuana and marijuana taxes and the fuel taxes had relieved was eliminated by something else that had happened. Right? So there wasn't a net effect where the property taxes that could be collected went down. But if all things stayed the same, in other words, nothing else changed, then yes, there would be. It just happened to be that there wasn't in the example we were using because other things were in motion. And it's tough to explain that without having it in front of it, but I remember us having very clearly us having this conversation.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. Okay, thank you so much.
Right. What else? Other questions, comments?
The only other comment that I had about this, and I'm sorry, Lance, I didn't write you about it, is, we talk about the budget, or the administration and the assembly coming to the budget advisory committee and asking us to examine these things. It was some time ago, was it not? I mean, it was more than a year ago when they came and asked us to look at this. So I was just curious if it would be worthwhile to include the dates, or even just the year. Like, they came to us in this year, like, I don't know, maybe that just makes us look bad because it's taken us so long to address it. But when I was looking at this, that was something that immediately came to mind, was like, when did they come to us? So, I don't know, maybe.
Well, it started from
yeah,
the administration. It was Lance. Lance brought this to our May meeting, I think, from the first time we talked about it from the administration standpoint. From the assembly, Eric Croft brought it to us when we did our strategic planning session in January.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, it was January, not
thought it-
February, whatever it was. Yeah, January. So those are the 2 points of contact that I recall.
I thought it was earlier than that, because there was already a draft that had been put together when we started to talk about it seriously.
An ordinance, yes, but not something that came from us, unless I'm missing.
No, I think you're right. So that's okay.
Okay. I mean, if you
Tell
guys,
the questions
if you
in.
guys would like us to kind of go back and dig
I don't
through
know
the
if it's
timing, because
worthwhile.
see what the assembly has done, they did in 2017. They suspended the application of the spending limit for 2 years, and they basically said in 2019 you got to figure out what you're going to do. You're either going to do two calculations that don't match, or you got to come up with a different plan. And this is the different plan. And so, yeah, I mean, you are right. The matter had come up 2 years ago, and then it's like, okay, we got to start figuring this out. We've been doing work for probably 6 months.
Yeah.
And then we brought it when we had our part done. We brought it to you in May, just to kind of say, hey, this is something we'd like to do before the budget's done.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you would like some of that, in there, characterization that you guys, you were asked, you've been working on it, and here it is. But it's up to you. I could do it. It's just up to you.
Since it's only been 6 months, I actually think it might make us look better.
Sure.
I mean, just in like that we are a commission
Okay.
that does things. That like we.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But here's the thing. I don't want changes like that to delay us
Yeah.
from acting, because it's.
Oh no, I agree. I didn't
Yeah.
think. I thought we have other changes here. I thought we could still act today.
We can-
If
we
we
can.
can't, then I take the whole thing back.
We can, as long as we don't have to do like background research to get.
No.
Okay.
No. If we can, yeah.
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I actually think that the whereas with the June, July, and August meeting in there is sufficient for, I think, giving people the impression that we have considered this more than someone brought a proposal and we just went, oh yeah, that sounds great.
We've been working all summer on this.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll accept that then.
Okay.
I think that's good.
Thanks, Tasha. Thanks, Alyssa.
So,
Yeah, Jed?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to offer a motion to approve this spending limit resolution as presented, but with the change of stated by Mr. Wilbur that were offered up by our colleague who's not here today, Lindsay, in swapping out the fourth and fifth paragraph whereases. All right,
So
thank you.
that would be it.
So,
I'll second that.
all right.
Oh, sorry.
Wow, it's like it got done as we were speaking.
I do think
So Carla and Lindy, while you're on the phone, on the what I shared with these guys, because I got some edits just for your benefit. It's the same draft resolution that I sent you guys, except we would move the order of the last two whereases and just flip them. That would be one of the changes. And then between those two, we would add another whereas that says a compelling reason to support the alignment of the spending limit with the tax cap is the unintended consequences the current spending limit ordinance has on constraining the municipality's ability to accept funding for projects that would otherwise benefit the residents of the municipality. And so those are some words from Lindsay. But the question that you had, Carla, is does the spending limit actually limit our ability to accept money, not just spend money, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how to word this, but I think that it is important to say something like accept and spend, not just replace the word accept, because there isn't there. I mean, the whole point where we talked about that this would be limiting on the municipalities is if Google shows up and says here's $50 million, right, or $5 million, right, and we couldn't do it. So it is accept and spend.
That is true.
Right? And I think that notion of accepting is important because that's where we're talking about the limitation occurring. If we're just talking about spending, it doesn't make it clear that we're not talking about taxes being raised. We're talking about one of the reasons we're getting rid of this is if a philanthropist were to show up, you couldn't take the money and do something with it. Right? That's really the limitation that we have really talked about.
Yeah, I mean, although it does say like that constraining the ability to accept funding doesn't, which doesn't mean eliminate the ability to accept. I mean, I would say that it is a constraint. If we can't spend it, then we probably can't accept it either.
Right.
But I mean, it is kind of hair splitting. But yeah, adding the word and spending is probably the solution.
So what I could do is on the third line it says municipality ability to, I will say, to accept and expend or spend funding for projects. Okay. Okay.
And then, Nolan, you brought up that this is now conflicting. I think it was you, it may have been Tasha. In the fourth whereas on the green one, it does not appear to provide meaningful constraint on municipal spending. And then the fifth whereas has a constraining, is constraining on municipality's ability. I think if we just get rid of that sentence, it does not appear to provide a meaningful constraint. I tried to.
You're right. We could just leave it as spending limit has been inconsistently applied.
I was trying to come up with another sentence.
And then you
that
have
meant that
the
it was
fifth whereas.
useless.
That
Exactly.
takes its place. Yeah, I agree. Just strike that sentence. Right.
So what sentence are we striking?
The last sentence of the fourth whereas.
So starting with it does not appear?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it doesn't, so that it
Okay.
jives with the next statement. Yeah, I agree with that.
So you had a motion and a second. Does anything need to happen in order to make those changes?
Let's revisit that motion that is reversing the fourth and fifth change, whereas changes, which we've got in front of us. It includes the changes to the third whereas, adding the June, July, and August meetings. Oh, we didn't have a July meeting.
You did.
Or
You
no,
rescheduled.
sorry, we didn't have a June meeting.
June.
Didn't have a June meeting. So,
So it would be, is it May, July, and August?
yeah, May, July, and August. Yeah.
Okay.
Help me out. What other changes were there? Oh, and adding the inserting and spend.
So to keep you guys going, we have a motion, we have a second. If Jed will accept those changes as a friendly amendment and the second concurs, then you are on your way.
Accepted.
Concur.
Opposition? On the phone, are you guys following that or in agreement with that?
I agree.
Who was, who,
Carly, I agree.
okay.
Then, so moved, I guess.
All right, no objections. That's approved. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Carla and Lindy, was that yes and yes?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Just, that's important for our,
Motion passes.
thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, what I'll do is, if you have a moment before you leave,
Yeah.
we will make the edits.
Okay.
Then what we will do is, we'll get you to approve this. We will get this tied as an AIM to the Assembly, as they're considering that document, and so they have it with them as well.
Okay, very
So
good.
I'll get that moving very soon. Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
does this complete our action items?
This does complete our, let's see, should we speak to next meeting real quickly?
So the next meeting is the 3rd. What I would like to do on that meeting, unless you want to do something else, is that'll be the day after we give the Assembly the budget. I'd like to spend my time doing that, as the week before that, I will be giving them a preliminary, I think we're scheduled to give them a review of the budget then, so talk mostly about 2020.
Okay.
And then I don't have anything particular for the 7th and then the 5th, but if you guys want to start rethinking about a strategy session, I will start planning that in November for a later December, early January event. So keep that on your mind. I didn't bring my schedule of regular things that you wanted to do, but Andy will bring the school district stuff. Will start cooking up for them.
Seem like you have something.
I do have something. I wasn't here for any of the pre-meeting discussion, and I was a little bit late today, but I wanted to make sure that we took a moment to acknowledge the birth of your daughter on Friday.
Oh yes, congratulations!
Celia Rose
That's
Clouda,
right.
8 pounds, 5
That's
ounces.
right. Those are the stats.
So, from what I hear, Dad looks a little ragged, but Mom and Baby are doing fine.
I thought I was looking great.
The bar shifts when the kids arrive. And on that note, there's a second congratulations is in order for Alyssa Rodriguez and her spouse for a foster baby that they have been fostering.
Congratulations!
So, new parent duties all around. Better you than me. I'm too old to do it again.
Wow, Jonathan, you're quite the stalker.
Thank you very much for that.
Well, Nolan has moved in about 2 blocks from me, so we're seeing each other more these days.
So just to note, on October 3rd, I'm going to be unavailable to attend in person.
Okay, we'll
So
send you
if
the
there
check.
are materials for us to
Sure.
review, to make
Thanks.
sure I get them by email, I'll call it.
Okay, that'd be great.
And I also throw in that I know we're getting into heavy duty 2020 budget season, but also that the stormwater utility, I think we want to kind of figure out a next step on what we can do to address that.
Yeah, I think whenever the Assembly approves the funding so they can start doing the analysis,
Yeah.
then I think you guys should start weighing in. I don't know when that will be.
Very good. All right. motion to adjourn? I can make the motion to adjourn and have it seconded it.
You could, but the better Robert's rules is to have one of your members do
Oh,
it.
okay, well then in
Motion
that
to
case-
adjourn.
Second.
There we go. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you, Lindy.
Should I be stocking something?
Thank you.
With respect to you?